Detective Comics 1037, Mariko Tamaki. Writing with Victor Bogdanovich on the art. And, I read this book first because I was excited. I was excited because Detective's been really, really solid.
Good.
It's been kind of a back and forth of like which one's better, Batman or Detective. And I feel like this one's got an easy victory because the last Batman issue we had was definitely sort of that middle chapter of a story, whereas this continued to give us swerves and give us like a pulpy detective story that has like sci-fi elements and
every answer led to more questions.
Yes.
Right? Like just when we think, oh, now we know what's killing. Well, wait, where did this stuff come from?
And I think because one of the things that I've been saying, I've been liking about this book, and a lot of DC right now, admittedly, but this book has had its good supporting cast. It's been setting up the mayor. It's been setting up this, the Mr. Worth, the crime boss dude who lost his daughter. This, Huntress is involved. Oracle's constantly involved. Blah blah. But the fact that it paid off, the idea that someone saw Bruce Wayne talking to this new murder victim in the last issue, and that get paid off with Bruce being taken to the jail cell for the night. And instead of, and I was like, oh, where's this going? And then this crime boss dude, because he just assumes that he's guilty of killing his daughter because he's associated with it now, shows up with a rocket launcher and blows up the police station.
Not before they evacuate the police station.
Yes. Obviously, he has connections to warn everyone to get out, and Bruce obviously survives, but he.
Yeah,
a weird story if he didn't.
I know. But
just the size disparity of Mr. Worth, right?
Yeah.
Like we see him, and he's
big.
gigantic. Like he's for the wrestling fans, he is Braun Strowman-esque, right? And usually with Batman, right?
But with charisma.
And not asking ridiculous amounts of money for.
He's a Wild West version of the Mountain from Game of Thrones.
Sure, there you go. Same vibes. But like when we see Batman, we've seen him fight like Killer Croc and stuff. But here, it's just this guy is so gigantic, though. It actually feels like the odds are stacked against Batman, right? He's just been nearly blown up, and they're in the sewers, like. I don't know.
And there's a lot of great build up to it as well.
Like a real threat.
Bruce finding out about the new murder victim from the reporter, and then being asked questions by the police, and then we transition from that to the mayor watching this interview. Like he has contacts in place to watch this interrogation, and this is when Mr. Worth shows up and gets really angry. So I had this gleeful smile in my face when it cut to like him outside with the rocket launcher, and then just a demented look in his face after he fired it because he's just furious. I'm like, this has been so well set up that I'm kind of popping for this payoff. This is him crossing paths with Bruce, and then of course you have Huntress doing her own investigation, talking to Oracle. We have the teases early on of the mayor's assistant, and then we see the mayor's assistant go into the back alley, go up to this guy on his phone. And we actually, there was a moment where I was worried it was going to do some sort of bullshit thing where he was going to turn out to be the Joker, because there's a close up of his mouth as he smiles, and I'm like, oh god, don't ruin this. And it didn't. It wasn't that. It was just creepy smile.
It was just creepy smile. Yeah. That never crossed my mind, thankfully.
Yeah. But then, so he's the one who's infecting people. That's making them go crazy, and then their eyes are going all nuts before they die. And we get this full page spread of him opening his mouth, almost Predator-esque. It's sort of splitting into four.
Yeah.
And this green, like, glowing parasite is coming out of his mouth. And when he comes back in later and the mayor's like, where have you been? He's like, I was grabbing a bite to eat.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is a horror sci-fi story now, on top of being a good detective story. I'm into this.
Dude, be creepy.
Yeah.
It was very much a like, it reminded me of The Thing.
I see that.
And like, everyone's trying to, like, not as much paranoia, but there's definitely, I feel like there's a method to his madness, why he's picking the people he's doing, right?
And I want to talk about just the build-up to the explosion, because it's really well done, where Huntress finds out where Bruce is and needs help, so she's on her way, and right as we get that, we have, like, Bruce say, hey, can I speak to a lawyer or something? And the cop, sounding kind of shady, says, no, we're going to waiver that right now. Just sit tight, Mr. Wayne. And it sounds very dodgy. and then it kind of builds from there, where you have the opening of the rocket launcher. You have Bruce, inside the cell, sort of hacking into the security camera, and Huntress is on the way. Like, so it does this great thing where all these things are happening at the same time, and they're all coalescing, and it builds to the explosion. So in terms of pacing, this issue is phenomenal. The way it teases the horror stuff, but then all the way everything builds to the actual payoff of the explosion, which obviously leads to Bruce diving into the sewers. Mr. Word chases him, and the cliffhanger page is, Batman, he's in full costume, attacking him.
I thought that was a really interesting moment as well, because Worth says, "Where are you, Wayne?" And he jumps out as Batman and says, "Here."
Yeah,
right.
I noticed that too. Yeah,
I thought that was a bold choice.
I was just gonna say it's as if Bruce knows Worth ain't making it out of this, So
yeah, it's like he's trying to kill him though. He's Batman, so.
No, I know, but I don't know. I feel like that's Tamaki tipping the hand.
Yeah.
Like there's not going to be any real repercussions for that.
So. No.
I presume. I also imagine, Bruce is kind of out of it. He's just been in an explosion. He's maybe not all there in the head.
True. True.
By the way,
Bruce has been in many an explosion.
He's going to have CTE.
I did laugh, though. Hey, that comes up in another book today.
I know it does.
But I did laugh, though, because Bruce sees, when he hacks out the security camera from outside and he sees him with the rocket launcher, we just have a narration box with the censored shit. He's like, shit. That actually made me laugh. Like, I'm just realizing he's about to be rocketed.
Yeah.
It's really funny to me.
And just also the way that Worth just says justice. Yeah.
Well, that's what I was talking about, that crazy look in his eyes. And this is what's funny, is that we're dealing with a plot where other people who are going crazy because they're infected are having these crazy eyes. But he's not infected. This is just him going full crazy.
It's just him.
Yes.
Yeah. But not Kingpin.
I love the sequence. I love the full page spread. Obviously, the explosion itself gets the double page spread, right? But then you have Huntress seeing this in the distance and going, wait, was that the building Bruce was in? Right? From a distance. And then you get the shot from behind, the panel from behind of him holding the rocket, and then the crazy face is the whole bottom half of the page. Like, the pacing here in the art is flawless. Like, it just, the way it plays out.
Bogdanovich is real good. We've known this, so...
It's a weird one, because I'd say he's not quite as good as Mora, which we've been having on this book.
Right.
But also he's still pretty damn good. So it's while I do consider it a step down from what we've had, it is a very small step down compared to other books that have changed to ice.
I feel like the pairing between Mora and Bogdanovich, if we're double shipping now, because this is the first of 2 issues this month, this is probably as good as a pairing that he could have got as the other artist.
And I think Belair's colors are doing a great job of keeping it really consistent.
Yeah, it feels like a Batman book because the colors, right? So.
Yes. Right now, this might change the next time I read an issue of Batman, but right now, Detective's beating Batman for me.
Yeah. Well, I feel the story's more consistent.
I'd say overall, I'm still enjoying Batman more, but I would say this issue in particular versus last issue.
Yes.
I'd give it to Tech.
That's fair. I think Tech keeps surprising me, and not that I should be surprised because Tamaki's, written some wonderful stuff,
right,
a lot, but
I also like that
it's coming off of that Wonder Woman run that we didn't kind of love by the end.
Yeah, it was good. But it wasn't as it wasn't up to the standard we expected from her because she was so good on Supergirl. She was so good when she did X-23. This feels like it's Tamaki firing on all cylinders. And I'm loving it, and the art's obviously great as well. So it's just.
I'm gonna say you think it's maybe too that this is its own story where it's not doing the Saint Peacekeeper Magistrate stuff as much. Like, there's little stuff there with the mayor's office and stuff, but this is Bruce trying to figure out what the hell's going on in this rich community.
It's a little bit more unrestricted in terms of that's trying to line up the continuity and set up the ongoing story, where this is kind of doing its own thing a bit more.
I think it's less about what the story's connecting to for me, and more just that, well, I'm enjoying the story in Batman. I think I just like this mystery, this alien parasite story. Like, all this story has just been building, has been so fun, the way it's been revealing its layers. I've just been into it. There's more of a pulpiness to it versus Batman right now, which I don't necessarily always prefer, but in this case, I think Tamaki's knocking it out of the park. So Certainly no complaints on the main story here. We should rate the main story. Matt, what are you giving it?
I'm gonna give it 8.5.
I'll give it an 8.
I'm going 9. I love this issue, so
look at you.
I'll give it a 9.
Didn't see that coming when I read it.
Should have said that like Quicksilver. Didn't see that coming.
Do you always try and predict my ratings when?
No, but like, I didn't. What I meant is just as I was reading this, I didn't expect anyone going, "Oh, I'm giving this a 9." Sometimes I read an issue and I'm like, "Okay, I can see people giving this one a high score."
I was feeling it. I was feeling it. I'm gonna say, we're back up, and I'm kind of digging how Tamaki's doing like kind of like complementary stories in the backup as opposed to just separate things. Because before we had the Huntress 2-parter, here we have the reporter who's writing a story basically about, like a rich soiree by Lucius Fox to like, give money to like children's hospitals or something like that. And it's basically her critiquing and saying, no, of course we should, save kids. We should save children, make sure they have the equipment to do so. But does that matter if the kids aren't in families that can afford healthcare? Does that matter if this and that? She kind of criticizes that, this is for all the rich people to show up and, make it look like they care. But is it enough to actually achieve any change?
It feels like it's because it's from the perspective of the reporter. It feels like it's not just Tamaki being like, "Hey, these are modern problems."
Yes.
Right? It actually feels like this is a problem in Gotham because it's like, yeah, who doesn't want to support children's hospitals?
I particularly like the lettering touch where when she sees Worth and she says Mr. Worth, the bubble goes cold and icy. It's like, oh yeah. You feel the tone of voice through what they did with the speech bubble, and that was really smart.
And I think the reason why this works as well is that thematically it fits so well into, because a lot of Bruce like moving into that street and talking about how the wealthy are separate from the city's problems. Like, it ties in thematically, so it doesn't feel like out of nowhere that we have this backup talking about it from this angle. It feels like it's adding to another viewpoint that we've already kind of touched upon earlier in the run. And again, it's building the supporting cast because now this reporter lady feels like such a prominent character that we can return to, throughout this run now. Assuming she survives. And obviously the joke ending is the bottle of booze she took from the party. She gets hit by the guy on a bike and it smashes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's Gotham for you.
Yep.
So, yeah, no, neat little backup adds to the overall story. It's a weird one to rate on its own.
It's on like 4 pages.
Yeah,
it's a shorter one, because there's 2 backups in this one, which I should have mentioned as well actually before I started talking about them. There's 2 shorter backups as opposed to 1 bigger backup. But I mean, I'd happily give it like an 8. It's kind of this weird thing, but I think it's a complimentary thing to the main book, though. I think it adds to my overall score, but on its own, it's like an 8.
Yeah, the art's not as good, right? So
sure,
I'm gonna give it. I'll give it a 7.5. But yeah, it's good.
I'll be consistent and give it a 7.
Sure. Why is that consistent? You give the main story an 8.
Half a point below Matt, full point below you.
Oh, okay, all right. So then we have a story by John Ridley and Dustin Nguyen.
Ridley, all over the place.
I wanted to love this, and then it had stuff in here that made me angry.
Oh, go ahead.
They made Dick into Jason Todd for like a few panels for no goddamn reason.
Oh, that's fair. Well, let me explain what this is. So this is a story set in the past. Obviously, it involves Lucius Fox, which ties into obviously everything that Ridley's going to be doing with the Fox family, and he's already doing in other books and other stories. But it's basically a story in the past where Batman and Robin are out on a mission, and Lucius has only just started working with Batman and Alfred at this point, and it's basically a conversation between Alfred and Lucius about Bruce taking in a kid, and does he want to be a long-term partner on this project? Does he want to keep helping? And ultimately the decision comes down to he wants to help protect these kids because he doesn't think Bruce will, and that's why he stays, as opposed to just believing in Bruce's crazy mission on its own.
I've been getting caught up on Next Batman.
Oh, cool.
And I definitely get what you're saying about what they're doing with Lucius, about how they're making him seem a lot more critical of Bruce and that type of stuff. And I know that's Ridley's point of view, but it's so abrupt, Doesn't
feel like Lucius that we're used to.
No, and it's weird, but it's consistent across all of Ridley's work, so I'm not going to be that upset by it.
Yeah, clearly this is the vision.
Because again, he has the point of view for it.
Yeah, I mean, this is clearly the vision he has for the character, and I mean, I will at least to play sort of the advocate here for him. I do think that there's an argument that Lucius was a bit too much of a copy of Alfred, and that he was just supportive, without the sass, and that was just all Lucius was. So maybe giving him this extra dynamic where he was more critical and helps for a different reason is perhaps more interesting and adds some depth to the character that wasn't there before. So it's it's getting used to it, I think, as it goes on. So yeah, it's this debate between them. So I like the concept of this, and I kind of liked what it was doing. I'm assuming you're just not happy that Dick was on a dark path after his parents were killed.
They got to this point where they're like, he was heading down a difficult road. He was going out every night looking for revenge, just taking it out on random people. And I'm like, I don't like this. I absolutely hate this. I'm angry now reading this book. Why would you do this to me, Ridley?
It didn't upset. I mean, I admit it felt a bit darker for Dick's story than we should have, but
especially given that Dick was traditionally taken in that very night, like Bruce was in most retellings. Bruce is there.
I mean, did you want him to do, be aggressively doing laundry in front of Alfred, like in Batman Forever? Like,
I mean, you say aggressive, I say more showmanship than aggressive, but yeah, no, I mean, I agree. It's just a little off. It's not something that upsets me too much, because it is such a small thing in this backup story that it's a bit of a blip. I don't think
it just completely alters his past and his character as who he was before Bruce. I don't like it.
But I don't like, until this shows up again in some form, if it ever will. It doesn't feel like to me that this is going to be what they're going to stick to in continuity. It just feels like a blip that we're never going to remember in months' time.
Yeah.
I don't think they're changing Dick Grayson's backstory.
Really hope not.
I don't think they are. So, which is why I'm not upset, because I don't think they are. So, but from the Lucius Alfred conversation point of view, though, I thought it was a solid thing that is adding to Ridley's overall work at DC. It's kind of funny how spread out it is over so many different things, but as someone who's read pretty much all of it, because it's I've been reading all the things it's been dipping into, it's nice that it's kind of like forming something overall. Does make it hard to follow, though, if you're just interested in the John Ridley Bat stuff. Like, you have to kind of dip and dive into other things, but neat. I could throw it in the trade. Throw it in the end of the next Batman Second Son trade.
Yeah, I'm sure they will, because it's definitely informing this version of Lucius that we're getting used to. Also, I want to talk to Pete about that too. I always thought Jace was the second brother, right? Since it was called Second Son. But we find out that Jace is the oldest.
I think Second Son is more from the perspective of us, because we didn't know about him.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So he's the second son.
But did you take that too, that he was Jace is the second oldest son,
as in
Luke was the oldest?
As in he's in the younger. I mean, I kind of probably assumed that, but it doesn't necessarily weird me out that it's not the case.
Oh no, but I was just wondering if that was just a me thing.
I think the way I would read it now is that because he was disowned, it was like he wasn't there. It's like he didn't exist. So now he's the second son to everyone, because
I just got to the point where we saw what he did with the accident, as he's declaring, and as a teenager, I want to hurt him. He's the worst kind of teenager.
Oh sure, yeah.
So Ridley's doing a real good job there.
For sure.
But so cool.
Well,
but yeah, no, Ridley here. A little weird this pops up in Detective. It's almost like they just needed something to fill pages. Because you're not gonna put this in Batman, I guess. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know where else you would put this.
Yeah, I guess it's one of those things. Maybe the point of this is like, you've bought Detective, you enjoy the main story, you enjoy the related backup, and then you've got this little extra story at the end, and maybe the hope is, if you like this, maybe you'll check out more of Ridley's Bat stuff that's coming up, because he's going to have a book soon.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the idea. So it's more strategic than we didn't know where to put it. But I mean,
true. I
would accept that that's also possible.
I'm just trying to find method to the madness. That's all.
Yeah. So yeah, that's all. I guess we'll rate the the story. Matt?
I'll give this one a 7. I mean, it's got Wen art, which is great. But yeah, it's fine.
I like what it does for for this version of Lucius that we're building, and the idea that Alfred's kind of having to talk him into it a little bit. So I'm happy to give it a 7 as well.
I mean, a 4 because it made me angry. It genuinely made me angry. I was reading it, and I was like, I hate this. I hate it so much.
Of course.
But if it hadn't had those like 3 panels, it probably would have been like a 6 or a 7.